I think that if Niara had parents that cared and took them to therapy, they probably wouldn't be trans today.
No, I would have transitioned sooner.
I think that they would have ended up just like me.
I was like you, but for me, that wasn't a life. And I don't know if what you're going through is just as bad as what I was dealing with, but I can empathize with you.
I'm a little weird. Sometimes I like lay in bed at night and have to struggle with God a little bit about myself and liking myself.
If you had gender dysphoria, you went to therapy, and you worked through it, and now you lay in bed at night and you have your battles with God, I don't think you overcame this. Question: as a cis straight man, is it weird that in fiction I don't relate with male characters and find immersion in the story almost exclusively with female non-binary femboy characters? I mean, I wouldn't say weird. I would say that maybe you're not cis. Do you relate with non-binary, with like femboy and female characters because you want to do more feminine things? Maybe I just like feminine people, who knows? Like, if you immerse yourself, do you want to look like that? Do you want to dress like that? What does it mean you immerse yourself? Can you like relate to that? Do you feel envious? Like, I'm not a therapist. I'm just like trying to maybe guide you into the right direction with this. Also, Nara, I did want to say something. You probably get a decent amount of these messages, but I did want to tell you that I came out as trans femme recently during your break. And I wanted to thank you so much for the informative and affirming videos on your YouTube. Even if a lot of them cover hateful people and events, they still prompt you to share some of your knowledge, which has been really helpful. I'm glad. It means a lot to me that people actually appreciate what I'm doing and that it's like a beneficial, even if I can only get views if there's some drama going on. Relate in the sense of feeling like I can kind of see myself being expressive that way, but I don't think I'd ever be able to dress up feminine. Although in my mind, if I imagine dressing up, I don't see myself. Maybe it's some form of dysphoria. Like, it must be nice being that comfortable in your own skin. You know what happened when I learned about femboys and cross-dressing? When I was like 14, I was like, maybe that's me. I can't be a real girl, so I'm just going to settle for a femboy. Let me just go upstairs, raid my mom's wardrobe, and put on a skirt. And then I looked into the mirror and I didn't see a girl dressing up, you know, femininely. I saw a boy dressing up femininely and I started crying because it just didn't look right. Not because boys can't wear skirts, but because I'm not a boy. And then I never did it again. And then I was like really envious of the girls in my class because I was like, I want to wear these things, but when I do, it just doesn't look right. I just want to be one of the girls, do the stereotypical girl stuff, but I would be a boy hanging out with girls. I would be a boy doing these things, and that made me shut down. And basically, as a coping mechanism, I started playing MMOs and also played games like S4 League. I was able to, you know, have a female character and have like all these cool outfits. And I knew that I want to wear this in real life, but I just can't. I just realized that I can't do feminine things because I haven't been blessed with like a more feminine genes. You know, when watching anime, like seeing characters who are male, but they are being confused for being girls. I thought if I'm going to be a femboy, then I have to look like a girl. But it was just, I want to be a girl. I don't want to do feminine things as a boy. So I kind of just gave up. And then I realized trans people exist and there are things that you can do about it. And I was like really mad and like frustrated because like, how dare they be able to like do all these things that I want to do? They are able to like start HRT and get all these changes and stuff, but I can't. It kind of sucked for a while. I was like, okay, I'm 18 now. It's too late for me. There's no point. I'm just going to like cope with that. But every single day I was laying awake and crying myself to sleep because like, I just want to wake up as a girl. When I was 22, I was like, I'm not going to make it till 30 like that. I can actually show you something. I don't want to bring like too much attention to this person, but I did have a conversation a while ago with a VTuber named Occo. They had gender dysphoria and they overcame it. And I want to show you something, like, obviously, oh my god. The internet's new perpetual victim, Yara VT. I'm not diagnosing anybody, not transvestigating someone. I just think that there's like something that I can relate to as a trans person, and maybe someone can benefit from hearing it as well. If this actually applies to Occo, I don't know. Just as a preface. Does it hurt to think about the past, or are you able to remember those times with neutrality? The thing is like, yeah, it kind of hurts. I was too scared to do something about it. I was being gaslit by society, basically being manipulated by my environment, and I was being taught that like, I'm one of those good trans people. I might be trans, but at least I'm not making it my whole personality, and at least I'm not going out of my way to actually do something about it by medically transitioning. I'm a good trans person. That is the rhetoric that I fell into, and I thought that I just have to like overcompensate by being more masculine, because I thought that like if I go the other route, then maybe things are just going to be normal. Like I'm going to realize that like I'm a man, I was born a man, and I'm destined to be a man. This is Occo. We did have a talk which was pretty draining. I don't know what I want to like do with it. I'm still thinking how I will use it. But they basically called intersex people broken and in need to be fixed, and that's why it's okay to mutilate their genitalia and force them into binary boxes. And I was like, okay, instead of being like confrontational and be like, what the f, you dumb bitch, holy crazy, actually crazy to have these takes. By that logic, a trans person would also be broken and they need to be fixed. So why is it okay to do gender reassignment surgeries on infants who don't even know their gender, who didn't even say their first word, but it's not okay to do HRT on 14, 15, 16-year-olds? And I don't know what the response to it is, but I think it was just like something like, nuh-uh.
I also go through some of their backstory that led to them becoming trans and how they became the next perpetual victim.
Hi, beautiful. You're smart and funny. You're the only woman for me.
I think is either scared of me or trying to ignore
Give me all your money
now
then,
because I kind of BTFO'd them in the past.
Wait, what did you say? This individual, I think, is either scared of me or trying to ignore me.
Or me now because I kind of BTFO'd them.
What the f does BTFO'd mean? Blown the f out? What does that mean? Absolutely destroyed or owned in arguments. If you look at the conversation, you didn't have any arguments. It's kind of funny how like Occo is like, oh, I studied up on Yara. I watched all the videos and I took notes and I had all these arguments addressed, and then you never actually showed any research or studies. The only thing that you brought up to was John Money, and then I told you what John Money's actual hypothesis was and how it like failed and proved trans people right and you wrong. And like the other things, like anything that I brought up to was like, oh, I have to look into this. Oh, I don't know anything about it. It's kind of delusional. You say that you destroyed me in this debate, in this conversation. But I'm just going to use something that you're going to say as an example for why I believe that if you have gender dysphoria, as you claim, and your experiences are correct, and as you claim, I strongly believe that you have not been quote-unquote fixed. I believe you would be much happier if you would start transitioning. And I'm going to tell you why, but I need to skip this weird part where you tell me that I make it my whole personality and shit like that.
One, it gives them a platform to grow, and two, I just feel like Nyara should be left alone and nobody should talk about them. I have changed my mind. I've done a 180 completely, and the reason why, if you want to know why I've decided to do a 180 chat,
This one's funny.
You want to know why? It's because they won't shut the f up. They will not shut the up.
Isn't John Money the guy that forces a cis male to live as a female? Yeah, because he thought that, like, if you change the genitalia of a boy, you can make them a girl. In order to, like, prove his hypothesis on, like, quote-unquote hermaphrodites, which are intersex babies with ambiguous genitalia, being like, whatever you pick, the way you socialize them, they are going to be that gender. That was the hypothesis, and he disproved that with his cruel experiment. And no matter how abusive this guy was, no matter how, you know, basically how much he tortured not just this poor boy who was gaslit into believing that they were a girl, but also torturing the brother, the twin brother of that boy. A cis boy is not a girl. And it's disgusting how people weaponize that and push the idea that he is actually the father of the transgenderism, because it's not true. And you don't understand the science, you don't care about the science, you weaponize it against the trans community to push a certain agenda.
I also wanted to talk to them because they had brought up, hey, you had gender dysphoria, can we talk about this? And I was like, sure, whatever, why not? And that's what ended up happening. So we had a stream where we talked about that. However, what was going to be a simple talk or a simple conversation.
It's never a simple talk when a transphobic person talks to a trans person.
A lot of people were like, oh, you should have expected this. And it was like, I did expect this. I did, like, listen, I did 2 to 3 days of prep work.
That is pathetic. That is actually so fucking sad. Anytime I showed the studies that I use in order to make my points, you hit me with, like, I need to look into this. I don't know enough about the topic. You weren't even able to engage with the arguments, even if I met you halfway and used your own logic and rhetoric. That is pathetic. Didn't see the border, but it doesn't sound like the talk went well at all. If you go to playlists, it should be visible here.
Part of the reason why I had some of the issues I had was due to factors at home, factors with my body, or factors about not being loved. I believe that now, and again, I don't think that all trans people are going to be solved if they just go to therapy and talk with people about a lot of things. I don't believe that's the case at all, because again, people are all different and people are going to have different experiences in their life. My issue again is wanting to issue broad strokes when it comes to letting everybody just like, or excuse me, not just everybody. Like my issue is letting children do this when the factor could be just that they are depressed, they are uncomfortable in their body, because when you are going through puberty, you are very uncomfortable in your body.
And these were like always like the arguments, and it's like, I mean, I get that like a lot of children are confused with like the changes that are happening to them, but it's kind of delusional to be like, well, every boy wants to be a girl, right? Every boy is like really confused with like the changes that are happening not being the same as the other girls, right? And then being like, oh yeah, we should just like treat the depression. It doesn't matter how much medication you pump into someone if the core issue is not going to be fixed. That is why antidepressants didn't fix the depression that was caused by me having a hormonal imbalance and being basically menopausal. I had to fix my HRT levels, like my HRT dosage, to fix my hormonal levels. It doesn't matter how much antidepressants I took, it just didn't fix it. And I think it's like incredibly sad to be like, well, I had gender dysphoria, I went to therapy, and I just like dealt with it. And then going on stream and being like, well, you shouldn't actually be able to do these things because like I didn't do these things. For me, transitioning fixed a lot of issues that I had. Social anxiety, depression, self-esteem. Sure, if your core issue is something else, then maybe, you know, just going to the gym and working out helps a little bit with your body image. But you can't apply the fix for one issue onto something else. And it's also pretty delusional to think that trans people do not go to therapy before accessing HRT. Because in order to get diagnosed with gender dysphoria and then go get approved for HRT, you need therapy. Because society makes it incredibly difficult for not just children, not just teens, but also adults to start HRT. You know, gender dysphoria, being trans, it's kind of a rare thing. So people are just going to try to root out everything else before allowing you to access it. That is why the regret rate is incredibly low. I wish it was easier to access it, especially if you're over the age of 18. I wish it was easier, because even if you start transitioning and you find out, hey, actually, this isn't the right path for me, it is not an immediate switch. This drags on for many, many years. And you're under constant supervision with multiple experts, and you can always stop. So even if it was easier to access it, and the regret rates were, I don't know, 15%, it would still not be bad. It would still be lower than knee surgery. If someone just throws stuff at me, but there's no pop-up, I don't think the way testosterone made me miserable is the average puberty experience. Yeah, exactly. And this person, probably pretty safe to assume, has still gender dysphoria and suffers from going through a puberty that doesn't align with their gender identity. And they try to find other ways to cope. They listen to the talking points of right-wingers who tell them that they are AGP males and sexualizing themselves, and I don't know, they just have like childhood trauma and were neglected by their parents, and would have been so much happier if they were a girl, because then they would have more attention, stuff like that. I can understand that, because I fell for that rhetoric as well. And I'm not saying that like transitioning would fix you, but I think that you are still dealing with these things, and maybe you should go to a specialist who deals with gender dysphoria and is not trying to do conversion therapy on you. Who just subbed and threw stuff at me and then didn't share?
Shut the fuck up, bitch.
Okay, fuck you, dude. They still use a feminine model and use a voice changer to make them sound more feminine. I don't know, maybe that could be relevant. Yeah, exactly. And like in this talk, I don't know where it is, but Occo said that like they still do have this persona in order to like cope with the fact that they can't have it in real life. And when I asked if they are happy right now, I kind of thought Occo is going to start having a breakthrough, but I think I was wrong. And they just refused to listen to what I have to say and just started obsessing over me to the point of admitting that they actually stalk me. That is why I didn't talk about you. That is why I didn't engage with you anymore. I believe, and this is just my armchair psychology thing, is because I'm trans, I'm transitioning, I have a community that supports me, I have a relationship with two wonderful people who see me just how I always wanted to be seen as, and you don't. I am basically what you want to be, but you don't want to allow yourself to start transitioning and breaking free from the shackles that your environment is trapping you in. And I strongly believe that if you would remove yourself from these communities, you would be pretty much alone, because you burned so many bridges over the years with your podcasts, with your streams, that the only people that you have right now are the ones on the right. But I promise you, if you want to actually figure yourself out, start breaking free from that, I will be there. I think you have a lot of, making up and, getting a lot of bigotry out of you and starting to be like a more decent person, but I'm there. And I think my community would also welcome you. I know what it feels like to resent other trans people because you don't have the good environment, you don't have the good genes, you don't have the access to HRT and stuff like that. I know what it feels like to lash out and start being angry at other people, start bullying other people in order to, overcompensate. I know what it feels like. You still have me on Discord. You can still DM me. I don't think that, like, you have to live like this. But the more you, like, start being angry at me and cater towards these bigots who do not respect you because in their eyes, you're a freak. You're a man cosplaying as a woman, but they still throw money at you and support you because you hate the right people. The reason why I actually wanted to talk to you on stream was to maybe show you that you and I are not that much different. I just woke up sooner. Let's see what Kat sent me. Allegory of the Cave. Plato's Allegory of the Cave is an allegory presented by the Greek philosopher Plato in his work Republic to compare the effect of education and the lack of it in our nature. The allegory Plato describes people who have spent their entire lives chained by their necks and ankles in front of an inner wall with a view of the empty outer wall of the cave. Oh, yeah, okay, I know that. I know that one, okay. They observe the shadows projected onto the outer wall by objects carried behind the inner wall, by people who are invisible to the chained prisoners, and who walk along the inner wall with a fire behind them, creating the shadows on the inner wall in front of the prisoners. The sign bearers pronounce the names of the objects, the sounds of which are reflected near the shadows and are understood by the prisoners as if they were coming from the shadows themselves. Only the shadows and sounds are the prisoner's reality, which are not accurate representations of the real world. The shadows represent distorted and blurred copies of reality we can perceive through our senses, where the objects under the sun represent the true forms of objects that we can only perceive through reason. 3 higher levels exist: natural science, deductive mathematics, geometry, and logic, and the theory of forms. Socrates explains how the philosopher is like a prisoner freed from the cave and comes to understand that the shadows on the wall are not the direct source of the images seen. The philosopher aims to understand and perceive the higher levels of reality. However, the other inmates of the cave do not even desire to leave their prison, for they know no better life. Yeah, the prisoners looking at the shadows and stuff. Just join the Discord? Let's go. Getting all the members and turning you all trans, because that is what I'm all about. I just want to turn everybody trans. I want to turn all the boys into girls and all the girls into boys. I'm forcing Occo to be trans. That was like the one thing that was like pushed afterwards, being like, oh, Nyara wants Occo to be exactly like Nyara. Part about that you can't forcefully save someone from the cave hits close to home. Yeah. So anyway, in this video, shaming me for my for the amount of tweets that I have. Like, I get it. I tweet a lot. Okay? I get it. I tweet too much. Are you being caught terminally online? It's my job. The reason why the stocks are so good right now, or like where they've always been going up, is because I'm getting into drama on Twitter and then I'm turning that into content. Yeah, to be yapping. Yeah, I can use these public figures coming after me as a way to educate other people. Yes, ADHD, you can't blame her for this. Exactly. Your Honor, I just can't stop. Fakes, aka choosing to repress and not act on it, but it's still there. Exactly. That is going to be the point that I'm making. Oh, by the way, thank you for everybody who's joined as a member. You gotta also join the Discord. You should be able to get like the role. If you can't afford the Twitch subscription, because you know it's $5, and I know that like $5 a month is a lot, but if you just want to have like the access as a member, it's 99 cents. That is the lowest I can go. All it basically does is give you access to the Discord. Doesn't give you anything special. On Twitch, you at least get like ad-free experience and all the emojis and stuff. Ah! Saberwolf!
Nyara has crazy Twitter clout.
Nyara has crazy Twitter clout. Thank you for the tier 1 sub. I appreciate it. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Now for people in this chat are referring to Occo with she, her pronouns. When I first discovered them, I thought they were trans. I asked Occo and
Judge me by
my enemies. S-Dog, thank you for the reset with the Prime. Thank you for the 3 months. I appreciate it. I asked Occo what pronouns they prefer, and they said any, so I just switched it around. But I think once I started using they instead of she, Occo just started calling me by they, them as well, which is kind of funny. Because I think maybe you prefer she, her pronouns. But, you know, you told me that it doesn't matter to you. If they're not trans, then why the massive tracts of land on the model? Oh, because Occo refers to themselves as an
Shut up, bitch.
Wow, okay. As an AGP male. Every man wants to be a woman, to be sexualized by other men, right? No, it's silly, but I wouldn't trust that person simply for the cop outfit on the autism creature. Occo said that autistic people are broken and need to be fixed. Just like intersex people. So, do all males wish they were born female? No, but that's someone who has gender dysphoria and doesn't want to, like, admit that they are trans and outside of the norm, and they could, like, start transitioning is, you know, trying to use as a coping mechanism.
One thing that I do need to bring up.
Here we go.
Why I think that Nyara is so pro-trans the kids. Some people think it's grooming. I'm not really, like, I am very hesitant to call things on that because, one, I don't want to get well, they're in Germany, but I don't want to get sued.
It's kind of funny that you wanted Kirsche to sue me.
This is, in my personal opinion, why Nyara wants to do that. Also, I've seen some people make the Klaus joke from American Dad. It's kind of funny. I don't watch American Dad, so I don't really get it, but I kind of see the joke. It's an iffy joke on my end, but you know what? I'm not the funniest person in the room, so, you know, you're allowed to think that my my agreements or disagreements on it doesn't really matter, but it's whatever. Anyway, let's go ahead and listen to this here. Go ahead.
I got late into puberty.
Okay.
And I had therefore more like feminine voice.
Okay.
To the point where I, you know, kind of started like stressing out over it, and I was like, well, I don't want to be bullied, I don't want to be different, and not be trans and still suffer with gender dysphoria. Yeah, I mean, like, cis people can have gender dysphoria as well. That's why a lot of the surgeries are performed on cis people, etc. Like, oh, it's apparently wrong for me to be a girl because people use it as an insult. So I'm just going to hide who I am, and I'm going to pretend that I'm...
I would like to say, chat, there is a deal of sympathy that I can hear, or that I can feel for Nyara, because they are very perfectly illustrating that they had a childhood, a very childhood, where they had parents that didn't care or bullied them. And I think they even mentioned that, where they were bullied for their confusion. And I understand that because, again, as somebody who had gender dysphoria and went to therapy, I understand that confusion. I get that. 100% I get that. Because when you're a teenager, you're hormonal, you don't understand the world that's going around with you. You've got all these weird things that you're trying to work out. I can understand that. However, where me and Nyara differ is, instead of having parents that it sounds like didn't really care, I had parents that had the gumption to take me to therapy. And we had to talk about why I felt like this, why I was going through this, why all these things were going through my head. And so I had in my personal opinion, direct opposite of Nyara, where Nyara had parents that it sounds like did not help them. I had parents that looked at me and said, I want to help you. I want to make sure that you know where you're going.
Just like my brother, for example.
Okay.
And that obviously didn't work. Okay, I'm just going to like play out this part here, because I'm going to make like a point, but keep in mind, Occo said they suffered from gender dysphoria. Their parents took Occo to therapy. They worked out why they felt this way. Okay, just keep that in mind. Disassociate and make me feel numb.
Did you ever talk to anybody about this?
No, I couldn't.
You couldn't?
I didn't have anyone that I could trust, because like my parents bullied me for it too. My brother bullied me for it too.
Okay.
and I looked online. You know,
Now, this is where a very critical mistake was made. And again, I can not excuse, but have sympathy for the fact that Nyara didn't have a person to turn to in real life. Okay? Because they were pushed away by the people that they were supposed to depend on for a voice to talk through these things. Like no cap, legitimately, if Nyara had people to talk to, I don't think they would be trans today.
it's not how it works.
I think that if Nyara had parents that cared and took them to therapy, they probably wouldn't be trans today.
No, I would have transitioned sooner. If my parents cared, took me to therapy, to someone who actually knows what they're talking about, I would have transitioned sooner.
I think that they would have ended up just like me.
I was like you, but for me, that wasn't a life. And I don't know if what you're going through, you know, off screen is just as bad as what I was dealing with, but I can empathize with you because I used to be there.
I'm a little weird. Sometimes I like lay in bed at night and have to struggle with God a little bit about myself and liking myself.
If you had gender dysphoria, you went to therapy and you worked through it, and now you lay in bed at night and you have your battles with God because you struggle with liking yourself, I don't think you overcame this. I think what actually happened is that your parents and the therapist were starting to gaslight you into believing that this is just a phase. It's just because you're hormonal. Everybody is confused sometimes. Everybody is like struggling sometimes. But when I was your age, I didn't know who I was either. These people that you trusted, still do, didn't want you to actually be yourself. So they were literally just manipulating you into believing that what you're struggling with is normal and that you had gender dysphoria and now you overcame it. Because everybody who has gender dysphoria just needs like a little bit of a push. You just don't have to give into the temptation of transitioning. The difference is I was fed up with it. I put in all the steps required to start HRT and it took me 3 years. It was a really difficult battle. Then I started HRT and it was a really difficult battle to the point where I was like, I don't know if this is like the right path for me. I had to fight with my endocrinologist because they gave me the wrong prescription, or like the wrong dosage of hormones, which made me feel really shitty to the point where I was like, oh, I just need like antidepressants now. Just need to medicate more. But in reality, I just needed to up the dosage. And then I had bottom surgery 3 years later. Now I'm 28, turning 29 soon. And I don't lie in bed at night wishing I would wake up as a girl, because when I go outside and I dress up a little bit more feminine, I get gendered correctly. When I look into the mirror, I actually see myself. Even if I still have flaws, even if there are still things that I'm insecure about, even if I wish I would have started sooner, even if I wish I was just a cis woman sometimes, I am so much happier being myself. And sometimes the dysphoria, you know, still hits, especially when it comes to like voice dysphoria. There's still like aspects that trigger it. But like, honestly, these phases, these downs that I have are no longer the norm. They are no longer constantly there. And if you compare my content, like from now to, I don't know, a year ago before my bottom surgery, you're going to realize that I have so much more energy and I'm so much more happier. I still have a long way to go. HRT wasn't flipping the switch. It was still like a process. When I was 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, I thought that like I'm not going to make it till 30. If I'm going to suffer for so many years, I'm going to end it. That's going to be my cutoff date. And at 22, I was like, I'm fed up with this. I have to do something about it. And that is where you and me differ. And you're going to find any way to deflect, going to find any way to cope. I can't make you leave the prison that you are trapped in. I just hope that you're going to do whatever makes you happy. I just don't think that right now you are. I sure it would have been easier to have simply been born as a cis woman in the first place. I wouldn't be the same woman I am. Life has been a struggle, but that struggle and overcoming it made me the woman I am, and I'm proud of making it this far. Yeah, exactly. Like, the thing is, if I wouldn't have, like, these stories, if I wouldn't have this life experience, I couldn't use it as content. I couldn't share my experiences. I couldn't share these stories. I would have had different stories that I could share. But honestly, I think the reason why I'm good at what I'm doing is because I had these life experiences and I had to fight really hard to get through this. I just got the email this morning confirming that my first order of estrogen has been shipped. I'm so happy to be here, where I am right now, with a bright outlook for my future from here on. Congrats! Let's go! The thing is, like, it's still a battle. Even if you start transitioning, it's still going to be a battle. But it's a fight that has a good ending eventually. It might happen after, like me, 6 years. It might happen after 3 years. But the thing is, like, the more I did, the more the more progress I saw. Even though it was really difficult to get there, it was still better than just rotting in my room, playing video games, crying myself to sleep, battling with God. I know that, like, if you start to wake up, if you start to break free from the shackles, your content doesn't do well for, like, a progressive audience, for, like, the general VTuber community. But I know with time, you're going to build an environment and a community that actually likes you. And you can use your experience to inspire others. And I think that is something worth pursuing. Go to a therapist, go to an actual expert, someone who knows more about gender dysphoria and trans healthcare and stuff. Work with them and figure out if the life that you're living is actually happiness, or if you're just used to the numbness. And what really makes me upset is that you listen to these stories that I'm telling, and then you do something like this.
Of to struggle with God a little bit about myself and liking myself, but I don't think they would have been, I don't think they would have gone trans today. I legitimately don't think so. But they had the opposite of what I had, which again makes me feel some sympathy for them, where they had parents and family that did not like or approve of how they felt, and they got bullied for it. And that really fucking sucks. And so where does Nyara turn to? Where do they turn to for their answers? The internet.
This is like 16 years ago.
Okay.
So
by the way, this was a long time ago. So I understand that the resources back then were probably very vastly different and people were vastly different. But interesting to point out there. 2009,
so
2008.
Yeah, basically, like, the research wasn't good on it. And also,
I will say, I don't think the research is still good now. I'm pretty sure coming out now, we have a lot of people saying that the research we have on gender transition with kids, I'm pretty sure we're starting to hear that that's a bad idea.
Yeah, we hear that from the right. Actually, the research is better than the right makes it out to be. They invalidate the research, and because you're hanging out in the right-wing circles, that is why you believe that the research is bad. Only from right-wing think tanks, exactly. The medical field, all these major organizations say that, like, the research is actually pretty solid. Not even just like medically transitioning, but like socially transitioning helps a lot. And the reason why trans kids are still struggling with depression, social anxiety, suicidality is because of their environment, of being bullied for who they are, having people insist that they're just freaks and they're grooming victims, and they are fighting really hard to take away trans people's rights. Medically transitioning, HRT is not going to fix a shitty environment.
I've started to hear that people are saying that it's a bad idea. I don't have any studies offhand.
Yeah, because you never have any studies. You never have any resources. I showed you so many resources proving you wrong, and you dismiss them because it doesn't align with your worldview. Because you don't want to admit that back in the day when you were struggling and suffering from gender dysphoria and you went to therapy, your Mormon family sent you to therapy, and they bullied you into believing that you're going to grow out of it and it's a bad idea to transition, gaslighting you, and you don't want to admit that these people were wrong because it would be too painful. Maybe I'm interpreting a little bit too much into. I don't know what your life looks like, but that is just what I'm hearing when you say that you're still battling with God.
Just been hearing a lot of people coming out and saying, by the way, the studies that people saying it did, they lied.
Show the proof. Like, literally, what the fuck are you talking about? Where are you getting your information from, and what are they talking about?
Of good answers, in my personal opinion.
I'm German, so I was like looking online, typing in German, like, why do I want to wake up as a girl? Why do I cry myself to sleep? Because I've been watching your long form videos on YouTube, and as a commie, I more than support you and your content. Wow, I have a commie fan base. That's based. Welcome, comrade. I'm glad you're watching my content and support my stuff. Common tactic is just make vague gestures and appeal to emotion without ever stating anything. Yeah, typical. I want to be a girl. And because there wasn't like education on it, I found like fetish forums.
So
that is the part that pisses me off the most, because now you're interpreting something that I'm not saying in order to make me look bad, or in a way to justify why I transitioned.
bad key typing, by the way. I don't think a kid really recognizes that when you type those kinds of words in, that is the result you're going to get. But they came to fetish websites. And fetish websites schooled them from that moment on.
I didn't understand what I was seeing. And I basically I was really stressed out that, like, if I talk with someone about that, they're going to be like, yo, some sort of freak.
That's where their education came from. That's where they learned, or where they think they learned. I blame a mixture of bad parenting and them going on the internet way too fucking early.
I hate that you being vulnerable, talking about your experiences turned against you. Yeah, I hate that too.
To find answers.
Because they don't get the proper message from it.
They found fetish websites when they were 12, and that gave them, that is the basis for in my personal opinion, that is the basis of where they ended up.
That is just so gross. The reason why I am where I am now is because I learned about these things. I learned that these things existed, these kinks existed, and it didn't resonate with me. It was like, this is gross. I do not want to feminize myself to be seen as lesser than a man because women are inferior, and I just want someone to degrade me like that. The message is that, like, I discovered that it was the only education that I found. I felt disgusted by it. I was shocked. I didn't know that trans people existed. I didn't know that there was anything, like, there wasn't another reason for why I felt this way. And it just doesn't resonate with me. And to take that I learned this, that I didn't learn about trans people, but just about these kings, and use that to say that you only transitioned because you have these kings and you learned about these kings, is incredibly disingenuous and pretty gross, actually. And if you ban education on trans topics, if you erase trans storylines from children's movies, like Disney does, you're going to have more and more trans kids only learning about fetishes and not that they are actually trans, and that they are valid and how they are feeling resonates with a lot of people. They are not alone with these struggles. Because when I thought that, oh, I'm just going to settle for being a femboy because I can never be a real girl, I didn't know that me being a real girl was actually an option. And it was because I didn't have the proper education. And that is kind of why trans people are never going to give up on trans youth. That is why I, quote unquote, will never leave the kids alone. Because I want trans kids to have better education. This is why the trans community is not just going to give up and concede to your lies, because there are still trans kids out there struggling and suffering. And if we give up, despite having the medical field back us up, despite having the research, despite having all these facts, if we give up, then like it's not going to be better for the next generation. For a long time, I did not understand this stuff either until I learned about it in high school, then because online stuff. No one told me about this stuff IRL, or at least explain it properly. I discovered the fetish stuff afterwards too, when I finally found those kinds of sites. Yeah, and the reason why we have like these things like cracking eggs, it is not something forceful. It's just someone sharing their stories, and then it clicks. And then they understand that how they are feeling is valid, and they have a word for it, and they can look into it. And instead of looking for like, oh, I'm a boy, I'm a confused boy, and I want to wake up as a girl, you can actually look, I'm trans, what does this mean? And then you find so much information on it. You find the proper information on it. Obviously, because there's a lot of like right-wing you know, talking points being pushed, it's going to be difficult to actually like filter that out from the real deal. But it's going to make it a lot easier than hanging out in some kink forums. The defining aspect of cracking someone's egg is the part where it's happening organically without push or convincing. Exactly. I'm always impressed by Niara's ability to deal with it, all this, and fight back real inner strength. I mean, you know, I've been dealing with this shit for a long time now. Never tried dressing like a woman or wearing makeup, but I always picked female characters in games and spent hours customizing them. I love magical girls, MLP. Also talk about the Yuri obsession. I always hated my body, thought it was just weight, but recently I've started thinking I might be trans femme after a group I joined made me realize I'd love to be a girl. Your videos are really helping do this, and even if it's hard to accept it after 26 years, I wanted to thank you. It's never too late to discover who you are. I wish more cis people would like actually, you know, figure out their gender expression and more about, like, learn more about themselves. Can confirm was 28 when I started HRT, best decision of my life. It's never too late. And HRT is literally f***ing magic.
Everybody